Hello, friend. Thanks for joining me for another book chat. Today, let's spend some time with The Anatomy of Melancholy by Robert Burton. This book was originally published in 1621, but from what I can understand of the publication history, it went through several revisions during the author's life and also shortly after his death. And the final edition was published, from what I can tell, in 1651, and that is the edition that I read here. I'm not sure how this book wound up on my reading list. I think it was referenced in some other book that I read, and I added it to my reading list, just to keep it on my radar. But it was, sort of a book that interested me. The topic interested me. When I saw this was available on an audiobook format, and after listening to a sample, I decided to give it a go because it's just the narrator. It was just this excellent narration by Peter Wickham that had a real calming. It was a very calm book to listen to. It's a whopper though. It's around 1,000 pages, and it took quite a bit of time to listen to it, but I found it very relaxing to listen to. So Robert Burton was a fellow at Oxford and an author in the 17th century. And, he wrote this book. I guess it was supposed to be a medical textbook on melancholy, or basically what we might call today clinical depression. But it's actually more of a work of literature. It's a philosophical, it's this grand philosophical survey of the human condition that just covers a myriad of topics: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual aspects of melancholy really are all explored. And no one is immune from it. So the author makes the point. From what I can tell, reading up a little bit that I did on the author, he may have actually been treated for melancholy as a teenager. Not real sure about that, but it seems to have maybe been the case. Nevertheless, it's obvious he was very, very interested in this topic, and he read extensively on the topic. So the references that he makes throughout the course of the book is from ancient sources as well as the current medical literature of Europe at the time, as well as the spiritual literature of Europe at the time. So, and also from the past. So yeah, just a grand scope of this academic survey. So as I mentioned, he says, no one is immune from melancholy because it's really an inherent part of the human condition. He says here, melancholy, the subject of our present discourse, is either in disposition or in habit. In disposition is that transitory melancholy which goes and comes upon every small occasion of sorrow, need, sickness, trouble, fear, grief, passion, or perturbation of the mind, any manner of care, discontent, or thought which causes anguish, dullness, heaviness, and vexation of spirit, any ways opposite to pleasure, mirth, joy, delight, causing forwardness in us, or a dislike. So he's saying it is a transitory melancholy, is that which comes and goes with all of these little troubles and fears and griefs and passions that we have, which are part of life, right? Like everybody has these. He goes on to say, in which equivocal and improper sense we call him melancholy, that is dull, sad, sour, lumpish, ill-disposed, solitary, any way moved or displeased, and from these melancholy dispositions no man living is free. No stoic, none so wise, none so happy, none so patient, so generous, so godly, so divine, that can vindicate himself. So well composed, but more or less, sometime or other, he feels the smart of it. So we're all going to have melancholy at some point in our life, he's saying here. I think the issue comes, he makes the point of like when people get trapped in melancholy, and that's when it becomes a bigger issue. The author is the narrator of this book, and he calls himself Democritus Jr. which is pretty funny. But he divides the book, it's basically into these three main sections. The first section is the causes and symptoms of melancholy. The second section is cures for melancholy. And the third section is the melancholies of love and religion get their own section in description. But there is so much packed into this book, and the author goes into so many tangents and streams of consciousness about topics all the way from geography to diet, to religion, to love affairs, to just everything you can imagine. I thought the best way to really approach this chat would just be to go over my notes. So as I was listening to the book, I made some notes about things that popped out that were interesting to me, and I'll put those here, and I just thought we would run through those, and that will give you an idea of some of the main takeaways that I had from the book. The first one is, he that is not satisfied by a little will never be satisfied, as a cause of melancholy. So if you are a person who cannot be satisfied by the smaller, simple things of life, then the grand things are never going to satisfy you either, and this dissatisfaction will lead you into a state of melancholy. The second little note I jotted down was, why should an infinite God not create infinite possibilities? You know, the author here makes the point that infinite possibilities are one cause of melancholy is a sense of hopelessness, like things can't change. Things are stuck in this way that they're going to be forever, and there's no way out, and so this can cause a sense of melancholy. But the author makes the point here of there's really infinite possibilities that things can change. Another little note I jotted down here was the mystery of migrating birds. He talks about this here because, of course, when this book was written, how birds migrate was unknown to him, and so he talks about this grand mystery of life. And I think, to me, the point he was making here was, if birds know how to migrate, they know how to get themselves from thousands of miles, over thousands of miles seasonally, that we can migrate, we can navigate ourselves out of melancholy, or out of this sort of state of mind. Another point that he made was, belief in the physician is part of the ability to cure. So the belief in the power of the physician to help you is going to be part of what ultimately would help you. Evil is not to be done that good may come of it. I really liked this idea of, don't do something bad in order to get something good, because it won't ultimately work. That's basically the ends justify the means kind of thought, that if you do something bad in order to achieve a good, that is not going to ultimately work out for you. Affluence is another common theme throughout the book. Being very well off, having too much free time, having too much good food can all lead to a sort of dullness in life. When you have everything, then you have to search for the meaning of your life, or for the purpose of your life, in other ways. And so some people are not able to do that as well as others. And so affluence, but also want. So also the lack of affluence can also cause a melancholy as well. But affluence does recur as a topic throughout the book. He makes the point of, we never want a thing for very long. So we may think we want something, that there is a desire, but when we get it, it's replaced by another desire. And this is a sort of life wisdom that is difficult to learn sometimes, but he talks about this sort of at length. Envy never ceases. So envy is a human sort of emotion that he spends quite a bit of time talking about throughout in different aspects of the book. But envy can cause anxiety, it can cause unhappiness. So envy is, it will never go away. So it can't just, you have to overcome the cause of your envy. Otherwise, it will ultimately consume you. So the force of the imagination, I jotted this down as well, because the imagination, the human imagination, has the ability to place us in different situations. And people with melancholy sometimes are not able to do that. And so I think that that was a point he made throughout the course of the book as well. The delight of digressions is something he talks about. Also, too many digressions in life, too many diversions can cause melancholy, but they are there for us to enjoy. And so taking pleasure in these small diversions and digressions is a fundamental part of being a happy human. He makes the point. Simple eating is another topic he talks about as far as curing melancholy, like simple eating, being happy with simple food, but on the other hand, not denying the pleasures of good food either. So it's sort of a balance there. I thought it was really interesting that he talks about witches and melancholy. You know, I interpret this today. I believe he was interpreting this literally to mean witches, but I would interpret this today to be some person who has an influence over you, who is creating some sort of influence over you that is an unhealthy influence that is causing you unhappiness. That would sort of be a form of witchcraft to me, a person having an influence over you, leading you into melancholy. Likewise, when he talks about how devils can cause melancholy, I think here he is talking about literal devils, but I would interpret devils here to mean more like addictions and other sorts of forces like addiction that are in control, that take control of you and create havoc and chaos in your life that obviously would create melancholy. Finally, notions, actions, and habits. So this is just the power we have, the control we have over our life, our psychology, the habits that we do, the actions that we take create habits. So good action can create good habits. Bad actions can create bad habits, which then can lead us into melancholy. He does make the point here that once melancholy sets in, like everybody's subject to melancholy, but once it really sets in very deeply, it's very, very difficult to treat. So the point would be to try to cultivate a healthy frame of mind and healthy habits and healthy actions and healthy ideas, notions, to create to have a happier, more balanced life. I think I will end the chat there. I just loved this. It took me a long time. It took me a little over a month to get this book listened to because it was quite a chunker, but it was very relaxing and just filled with wonderful ideas. I will close with a prayer he has against perturbations. From all blindness of heart, from pride, vainglory, and hypocrisy, from envy, hatred, and malice, anger, and all such pestiferous perturbations, good Lord, deliver us. Yes, all those things cause us to be unbalanced humans and in a state of melancholy ultimately. So I will close the chat with that. My next chat is going to be, let me call up the cover. It is going to be The Abolition of Man by C.S. Lewis. I have finished this already, so I hope to have a chat on this coming up soon. So until next time, take care.